Welcome everybody to the UFC Fight Night 207 breakdown and Ben Odd show by Cage My Q. Welcome back to the show. As always, I'm your host Cage, and this is my co-host Jim. How's it going, Jim?
It's going good, man. I'm ready to break down this card. This one, it kind of pushed me to the limits when it came to some research
Yeah.
on this one. Some fights that I like. There are some fights that I dislike, and then some fights that have some potential title implications, which is fantastic. So I'm ready to break this one down.
So do I. But before we get into any of that, of course, this is the Cage by Q podcast. You can find us on social media on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. You can check them out, all the Twitter handles and social media handles right there to the left. Of course, we are partnered with the YouTube channel Fighters First. If you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe button down below and hit the notification bell so whenever we put any content out, you guys get it right away. And then, of course, as you see down below, please smash the like button and help us out with the podcast. And of course, hit us up in the comment section and let us know what you think of this upcoming card and your opinions on who we like to win for Fight Night 207. We're about to get started with this. Of course, if you haven't seen it so already, we have a shirt out now for the Vintage 22 collection for FightersFirst.shop. All you gotta do is go to FightersFirst.shop, go to the Vintage collection, and go buy one of our shirts that we have on there. This is the Cage My IQ Vintage 22 shirt. As you see there, we've been a podcast since 2020. It's just a homage to when we started the podcast. We also have shirts out for the Slam Town podcast with me and Mike again, where we talk topics in the world of wrestling. We got the Art of MMA shirt. We got the Kicking It with Tim and Brandon, and we got a few more coming out as well. So check out all the vintage shirts in the vintage collection and check out all the other merchandise that we have on FightersFirst.shop. What were your opinions of this fight card uh, before we get started with the breakdown?
Yeah, I think you have a lot of variables in this fight card. You
Yeah.
got some people moving down. One big jump down that we'll talk about. Got a lot of people making their or a few people
Yeah.
making their debuts. We have a fight on this card that I have no idea how it made it to this card.
Yeah.
But we also have like the main event. I know a lot of people are like, "Why is this the main event?" It's very interesting, this main event, and we're gonna break that down. But overall, I like this card. It's a good follow up to last week's card. It's always good to see the women get the spotlight.
Yeah, we're going to go into that a little bit more, but I think the very interesting thing with the Lemos Andrade fight is the fact that Andrade is moving divisions, and that Lemos is a big prospect making her move up in that division as well. They're kind of similar in power, but just like you said, we are going to get into that in the main event later on in the show. But as you see right there, this is going to take place at the UFC Apex. It is a 14 fight MMA bout in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's going to be a very good one for if you're into the newcomers or the guys looking to move up, because there's a lot of that. Taking away the first three fights, as you see right there, there's a lot of people either coming back or
Yeah.
fighting for the first time in a while. But the first one we're going to start with on the prelims is a matchup that was just put together the other day between Jourdain Wright versus Marc-André Barriault. Barriault's filling in uh, for Roman Kopylov, who had to bail out due to, I think, a broken orbital or an injury of some kind. But you got the Belly Hills Ninja, Jourdain Wright, who is coming in at 12-2. He's 3-2 in his last five fights, whereas Marc-André Barriault, aka Power Bar, is coming in at 13-5. He is 2-1-2 in his last five fights, and of course, everybody thinks they're leaning towards 56% towards Jourdain Wright's side, and then 44% are leaning towards Barriault side. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you have winning?
Yeah, first, I mean, it's a crazy close
Yeah.
kind of spread there for it being such short notice. But I do like this matchup despite it being short notice. I'm going to go with Jourdain Wright in this one. Wright has good power, good grappling, and comes in with the 4-inch reach advantage, which could set up that knockout shot, which he's been kind of hunting for in his last few fights. Marc-André has power, but at times struggles to rack up the volume, which leads him to lose decisions, which he has seven of his losses in the amateur and pro career. Plus, you factor in the fact that he's coming in on short notice, so we don't know where his gas tank's going to be. We don't know how fit he was. So with all those, variables to this fight, I have Jourdain Wright getting this win via second round knockout.
Yeah, I'm going with that side too. If you look at Jourdain Wright's past few fights, he's a quick starter. He likes to go in there and he teases that spin kick right off the bat. He threw it once, and then the next fight, he faked it, and then went and threw a calf kick right away after he faked the spin kick. That's just a homage to his background. He has that kickboxing and karate style that he likes to use. So he throws a lot of different leg kicks to the calf, to the body, to the head. Of course, the spinning ones are one of his favorite.
Yep.
And then you got Marc-André Barriault, who's technically a slow starter, and he gets going as the fight progresses. And he likes to throw a lot of different strikes, not much with the feet. It's mostly like the hooks, the overhand shots, the jab, anything to do with that. But he's been struggling in some fights against certain style of fighters. Like one fight here, get a lot of volume, and then the next fight, he'll get hit and knocked out right away. And I feel like with the fast starting of Jourdain Wright, it plays into Jourdain's favor where he can go in and stun him with one of those leg kicks. And usually when he does that, he goes in for the kill. He doesn't allow his opponent to recover. He goes in there and just throws like a barrage of strikes and kicks. And I could see a first round knockout for Jourdain Wright here if Marc-André Barriault doesn't defend those leg kicks well. I just feel good for Jourdain Wright. He's been the one that's been training, and then Barriault just took the fight on a week and a half notice. So I'm going with Jourdain Wright by first round knockout.
Yeah, to kind of piggyback off of the thought that you said about there being low volume versus or one fight versus high volume in the next fight.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the trend on this card. There's people that'll throw 126 strikes, right? The one fight, and the fight before that they landed one and they won all three rounds. Like, so you're going to see a lot about that. And also, when you asked the question in the intro, what my thoughts on it. This is one of those cards that doesn't have like the big sexy names, right? It doesn't have the Volkanovskis, the Adesanyas. It doesn't have those names, but it has a bunch of fighters that if you watch, you can really appreciate their game. So I think that this is one of those kind of underrated cards that could steal the show. It could steal, the month. I know we just had a great pay-per-view, but this could potentially steal the night. I know a lot of people are in the comments and be like, "What are you talking about?" But give it time. These fighters are hungry. They want to climb up in the ranks, like you said, and get their name out there.
Yep. But let's move on to the next fight on the card. It's the one that you were talking about. We got Marcin Prachnio versus Philipe Lins in the light heavyweight division. Of course, Philipe Lins is coming back off of a 2-year layoff. He's had a bunch of canceled fights, and he's making the move down from heavyweight to light heavyweight. But you got Marcin Prachnio, who's 15-5. 2-3 in his last 5 fights on the 2-fight winning streak. And then you got Monstro Philipe Lins, who is 14-5, 2-3 in his last 5 fights. And of course, everybody thinks that it lean towards Prachnio, 84%, whereas only 16% are leaning towards Philipe Lins. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you have winning?
Yeah, man, I'm going to echo what you said. This is a very interesting fight, and one
Yeah,
where Linz is dropping down to 205 after weighing in his last fight at 234. And I know a lot of people are hoping that Chris Daukaus does the same thing after his recent struggles in the heavyweight division. But I have Prachnio winning this one. Linz
yeah.
dropping down could be great for his career, having the 78-inch reach, good grappling, and knockout power. But I feel that he's at a crossroads in his career, and Prachnio is going to capitalize on that. He's lost two in a row. The UFC trend, we see 3, 4 losses in a row. You're bounced. So I feel like Linz isn't going to come in as aggressive as we would expect him to, dropping down a new division, coming in with heavyweight power. I like Prachnio's use of leg kicks and body work to wear his opponent down. Um, that's going to be a big weight cut for Philipe. So I think he is going to use this strategy against Linz and get the third round TKO.
I think another thing with that is the fact that Felipe Lins does not check leg kicks. In
Not at
the
all.
Tanner Boser fight, Tanner Boser was throwing some leg kicks, and they pointed out the fact that he wasn't checking them at all. And with a guy like Marcin Prachnio, who his game is heavily used with leg kicks to all the body. You saw in some of his fights, like the Clear Roundtree fight, he threw 40 leg kicks that he
Yeah.
connected on. And then against Ike Villanueva, he connected on almost 20 of them. And he threw a lot to the calf. And then he started attacking the body and the head. And then he was having a lot of success. And then once he was getting success with that, that's when he attacked the body and then worked his way up to the head. Like, you're going to throw at the head, but he likes to attack the body. And against a guy like Linz, you can really slow him down with those calf kicks to the shin. And then once he starts slowing down, that's when you pick him apart. And Linz has been easily hittable in fights. He's very slow. Boser used the quickness and hand speed to basically knock him out. He was able to duck under in that fight and just land 5 or 6 punches when Linz was stunned and
Yep.
got the finish there. I could see a second round knockout here by Prachnio. I think he'll use the first round to just get him going, hit him with a bunch of leg kicks, and then he'll start to work the body and the head, like I said before he stuns him and finishes him once he slows him down to the point where he's not moving too much. But Marcin Prachnio is a guy on the rise right now. After that 3-fight losing streak, this is going to be a 3-fight win streak after the knockout.
Yeah, this definitely isn't an easy debut at light
Yeah.
heavyweight for Felipe Linz.
Yep. But let's move on to the next fight on the prelims. We got a men's lightweight matchup between Damir Hadžović going up against Steve Garcia. Damir is coming in at 14-6, whereas Garcia is coming in at 12-4. You got the Bosnian Bomber versus the Mean Machine. The Bombers 3-2 in his last 5 fights, whereas the Mean Machine is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. If you look at the percentages, 80% are going towards Hadžović, whereas only 20% is going towards Garcia. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you have winning?
Yeah, I actually love this fight, Dan. I don't see this one going the full 3 rounds at all. This was actually a tough fight for me, but I'm going to go against the 80%. I'm in that 20% that thinks Garcia is going to win this one. Garcia is the bigger fighter who has knockout power. He has a 3-inch reach advantage. He also likes to get the fight to the ground, where Hadžović has been susceptible to takedowns. If you go back to his Giagos fight, he was taken down 6 times.
Yeah.
If you go back to his Patrick fight, he was taken down 9 times. And if you go back to an old fight with Marcin Held, he was taken down 4 times, but he got back up and he needed Marcin and it was over. So if Garcia can get the fight to the ground several times, like Patrick and Giagos, he could potentially slow Hadžovic's offense down. I think that's what Garcia is going to do. He's going to spend as much time possible on the ground to just get the control time and get his favor in the judges' eyes. And I think he's going to slow him down enough to get a late second round KO. I think Hadžović goes to sleep in this one.
This is going to be a very fun one because fun fact, Damir used to be a bodybuilder before he became an MMA fighter. He went to the gym and to work on bodybuilding, and that's when he got introduced to MMA. And his nickname is the Bosnian Bomber because he throws bombs, and
Sure.
he has worked on his technique over time with that. And just like the theme of this preview, he throws quite a bit of leg kicks. He likes to throw to the calf a lot, and then he mixes in those bombs. He throws the straight punch to the middle, and then he throws the wide shots from the left and right side, and with a really good speed. But I think it's going to be too much for him dealing with a guy like Steve Garcia. Garcia comes in like a bat out of hell in all of his fights. He just comes in, minimizes the space, and throws those knockout shots at guys, and really quickly. And he most of the time he connects. He had a good showing in the Contender Series, and then he comes in and didn't get the result that he wanted, but he has the tools. He's worked with John Jones and works at Jackson Wink, and they have said that he's getting better and better. He just needs to get like the Yanks out and not think about fighting and just go in there and go to war.
Yeah.
And he has that knockout power. And he's worked against guys who kick a lot and grapple. And I feel like he's going to come in there, start swinging right away to keep Hadžović from keeping that distance to throw those leg kicks. And he's going to catch him with a shot and knock him out in the first round. He has that power to do so, and he's done it before. So I'm going Steve Garcia, first round knockout.
I did not think you were going to go that route. When this fight came up, I was like, you are 100% in Damir's corner. But man, I'm glad I'm not the only one going with the underdog on this one. Nice.
Yeah. Moving on to the next fight on the card, we have a men's welterweight matchup between Dwight Grant going up against Sergey Khandozhko. In this matchup, Dwight Grant comes in at 11-4. His nickname is the Body Snatcher. Then you got Sergey Khandozhko, who is 27-6-1, and his nickname is Honda. First, you got Grant. He is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, whereas Sergey is coming in 3-2 in his last 5 fights as well. When you look at the percentages, Sergey is the 75% chance to win, whereas Grant is only 25% chance to win from all the people that voted. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you have winning?
Yeah, this is going to be a low volume fight, I think. I have Khandozhko winning this one lately because Grant has been such a low volume striker. When it goes to the judges, he struggles to get the nod. He doesn't do enough to win the judges' favor. He has good wrestling coming out of AKA, obviously works on kickboxing over there, and he does have some power. But I think Khandozhko is going to outwork him in this fight and do enough to win by decision. I think that this is going to be not like a slow fight, but I think this is going to be a slow developing fight. There will be flashes of brilliance on the ground, but I don't think that this is going to be a war on the feet. And I also hope that Honda means something in Russian other than the car for a nickname. But that's
Yeah,
just me.
I got Grant by knockout
Really?
round one as well. I'm going to continue that trend right here
Okay.
because Drake Grant, watching some of his fight film, like he has a chinny. He is very chinny, of course. He's been knocked out. If you look at the Daniel Rodriguez fight, he put him to sleep. But then right before that, he almost put Daniel Rodriguez to sleep. He
Yeah.
comes in there, closes the distance, and even though he's a low volume, he has that knockout power and that speed to come at guys, hit them, and put him down, and then he could get on top of you and grapple with you from the back. He has pretty decent jiu-jitsu to mix in with that. Whereas Sergey Khandozhko is more so a kickboxer. He likes to throw a lot of leg kicks. He likes to stay within like a certain distance to use that tall frame and long legs to his advantage. Just like you said, he likes to rack up the volume that way, and he doesn't like guys to come in close because he isn't as well versed against the grapplers to deal with them. And I think that's going to be like a key for Dwight Grant in this matchup because he can grapple with you, he can take you down, and I feel like he might use that to get in range, and he'll use the takedown as like a fake, so he can like fake it, go up, and throw those bombs at Sergey from up close. And I think he's going to put him to sleep.
All right. There's our first change in the night, difference of opinion.
It is a difficult fight because
Yeah.
of the chittiness of Grant. But with the fact that Sergey hasn't fought in a while, and even though he hasn't had the most success of late, I still think that the capabilities of Grant match up well against Sergey.
Yeah, this is definitely a good matchup for sure.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see it. Watch this win like fight of the night.
Yeah.
For some strange reason.
I could see that too. But let's move on to the next fight on the card. We got one of my favorite fights of the week. We got a flyweight matchup between Sue Mudaerji going up against Manel Kape. First, you got Sue Mudaerji, the Tibetan Eagle. He is 15-4, 3-2 in his last 5 fights, whereas Manel Starboy Kape comes in at 17-6, and he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights as well. You got the percentages, which are leaning 85% heavily towards Manel Kape, whereas only 15 are leaning towards Sue Mudaerji. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you have winning?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really entertaining fight. This is one of my favorites as well. I'm with the Tapology community, and I believe that Manel Cap is going to win this fight. He seems to have fixed something in his game that is leading him to be more aggressive and landing crisper shots. When he came in, he had all this hype, right? He came from one championship,
Yeah.
right? And they were like, this guy's the next phenom. He's going to knock everybody out. He came in and he lost 2 close decisions, and he was being outworked in the cage. The last 2 fights, he's really put it together. So I feel like he's got those UFC yips that you were talking about, and really has pieced his career together. So I think Cap wins by 2nd round knockout. But if this goes to the judges, I do give the advantage to Sue Mudaerji. He's definitely a gamer, and he puts on a lot of volume and can just lay on you if you need to. So I'm going Manel Cap 2nd round knockout, but my cop out is that if it goes to the judges, Sue Mudaerji wins.
This is one of my picks for the week here. I got
Okay.
Sue Mudaerji, and I got him by decision here. I wanted to go knockout. I wanted to continue the trend, but this is so good of a matchup. I feel like both of these guys are going to go at it, but it's going to be like these small portions of moments where they go at it, and then the rest is going to be them moving around, awaiting their time, because these guys are snipers of strikers. First, you got Manel Kape. He has that big boxing background. He's very quick. He has good movement. It took him, like you said, it took him a couple fights to get into the UFC groove. Like he would start out very slow, and then all of a sudden in the 3rd round, he'd pick it up and start being on his opponent. He'd just be too patient. And then lately, he's been getting in sooner, and he's gotten a couple of knockouts. But then you got a guy like Sue Mudaerji, who's one of the tallest guys in this flyweight division. As you see right there, he comes in at 5'8", which is pretty tall.
Yeah.
And then he has a 4-inch reach advantage on Kape. And he's the type of guy that likes to move around. He has really good cardio. He throws those kicks, like he throws a lot of different style kicks. He throws the calf kick, the switch kick, the spin kick. He throws the side kick to the stomach. And then he mixes in the straight punch to the face, and then the wide shots on his opponents. One of his favorite is the hook. And I feel like he's going to be able to do a lot of damage and volume to Kape. And with his movement, he can avoid those shots from Kape, the knockout shots. I think Kape will still get some volume in, but I think Mudaerji is the more likely to win the volume battle with it going to the distance. I do think that Mudaerji has to watch out for that knockout shot,
Yep.
but I feel like he's going to be able to avoid that and then just do just enough in this very good battle to win by decision here. So I'm going with the underdog here.
Yeah, I feel like you and I did the same research on this fight.
Yeah,
Just went with a different outcome. This is circled in for a fight of the night for me. I
yeah,
think that this is gonna be a banger.
yep, agreed. But let's move on to the next fight. On this prelim card, we have a men's late heavyweight matchup between the returning Tyson Pedro versus Ike Villanueva. Tyson is coming in at 7-3. He is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. And then you got Hurricane Ike Villanueva, who is 18-13, 1-4 in his last 5 fights. The percentages think that it's going to be Tyson Pedro by 93% voting to only 7% voting towards Villanueva. What are your thoughts on this fight, Jim? And then who do you have winning?
Yeah, man. When I saw those numbers, I was like, holy crap. Like that community does not believe in a
Yeah,
3-year ring rust. But I'm actually really looking forward to this fight. I'm glad to see Tyson Pedro back after that 3-year layoff. I've really been a fan of his since he broke into the UFC. I
yeah,
remember Mark Hunt talking about him and Tuivasa before they made their UFC debuts about how they were the future. So I really honed in on these guys, and I'm really excited. Like I love that Tuivasa's succeeding, and I think Pedro's poised to take that next step. I have him winning this fight. I think he has had plenty of time to reassess his game after those 2 straight losses, train better and recover. Ike is a very powerful fighter, but he's going up against a faster fighter who can take the fight to the ground. I think his last win, Tyson Pedro's, was a Kimura, so that says something. Um, but also, Tyson Pedro has a ton of power and comes in with a 6-inch reach advantage. So
yes.
I have Tyson Pedro getting back in the win column with an early second round knockout.
Yeah, when you look at Ike Villanueva, to me, he's like a one-dimensional fighter. He has that boxing background. He has good movement. He throws those power shots, and then he mixes in that uppercut within it. But his defense has been lacking for so many fights lately. Of course, you have the fight against Jourdain Wright where he kicked him with the spin kick, and then
Yep,
they stopped the fight because of his bleeding on his head in the first round. Then you had the second round stoppage where he lost to Marcin Prachnio because of that shot to the side of the ribs that because he took so much damage to the leg and the rib that he just basically fell to the ground in pain. And like it's all hands and up for Villanueva, whereas Tyson Pedro, he has that 6-inch reach advantage in this matchup. He can knock you out. He can move well. He can throw those kicks, which Villanueva does not check. But then, just like you said, he can grapple with you. He can take the fight to the ground and submit you. And in one of his early fights, he defeated Paul Craig, where he was able to get on Craig when Craig tried to take him down, but he was so big that Craig couldn't get him down, and Craig wound up getting pulled down, and Tyson Pedro held his hands down and just threw those elbows
yep.
until the refs stopped the fight. I could see this being a second round vertical choke victory for
Wow.
Pedro. I think he can wear
Okay.
him out in the first round with strikes, wait until Villanueva is a little bit more tired, and then here take him down, take his back like he likes to. All the interns say that one of his favorite things to do is get the fight to the ground and take the back of his opponent and choke him out with a rear naked choke. So I got him second round submission here over Villanueva.
Yeah, I think Tyson Pedro got a little ahead of himself in
Yeah,
his such quick start, right? And then he
yeah,
was humbled, and then he got hurt, which even humbled him even more. I've watched a lot of interviews. I follow him on social media, so he's been
yeah,
really pumping up this fight. But I'm really glad to see it. Like this is one of those fights that like I circle as like super excited for. Whereas this
yeah,
next fight you're about to introduce is one that I'm like, what is happening?
yeah. Yeah, so the transition from that to the next fight, as you said right there, we got Dean Barry going up against Mike Jackson in the welterweight division. Dean Barry is making his debut in the UFC. He is named the Sniper. He is 4-1, 4-1 in his last 5 fights, whereas Mike the True Jackson is 0-1, and he is 1-1 in his last 3 fights. Of course, he had his fight against CM Punk, which was turned to a no contest due to testing positive for marijuana right there. But the percentages are going 97% towards Barry, whereas only 3% are going towards Jackson. And Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you have winning?
I saw this matchup and I was like, what the hell is happening? I have
Yeah,
no idea why this fight was made, or how this fight was made. Um, I have Dean Barry winning this fight. Mike Jackson hasn't fought in over 3 years.
yeah,
We saw that CM Punk fight. That was embarrassing. And that's no disrespect to either one of those fighters. They could both kick my ass. But in the when you have the boss of the UFC saying he'll never fight in this promotion again, that's a pretty big blemish on your career. Yet here we are. Um, Barry's been more active. He's faced tougher opponents, fighting in Titan FC. This
yeah.
seems like a gimme fight from the UFC to one of Connor's trading partners, and like an easy debut for another Irish prospect with Dean Barry. But I do see potential in Dean Barry, despite him being so young in his career. And I believe he's going to show it during this fight, and he's going to win this fight by first round knockout.
Yeah, I'm going with you. I'm going the first round knockout. There are things he's going to have to worry about. Like he's very susceptible to be taken down by where he doesn't have the best takedown defense, and he needs to keep the fight standing. But against a guy like Mike Jackson, who predicates on movement and his boxing, and then he takes down guys if he has to, but he is very chinny in his fights. Even against CM Punk, he got hit a couple of times and he got
Yeah,
stunned in it, but he had the experience to deal with the inexperienced guy like CM Punk. But Dean Barry is a world class kickboxer. He probably could have went pro in one championship or glory if he wanted to, but he chose to go the route of MMA. They made the comment of that in Titan FC, and he trains under SPG. We talked about this before, the same area as Conor McGregor, but instead of having the boxing background, he has the kickboxing background. And I see this going first round knockout via leg kick to the face. I think he's going to use the leg kick to keep the distance, and he's just going to throw volume early on. He's going to avoid the grappling of Mike Jackson. I think Jackson's going to game plan for that. And then that's why they made the matchup. They want to kind of test Dean Barry and how he does against a so-so grappler and Mike Jackson, who has had the experience of going for takedowns like that. And if he can deal with that, he's going to have easy work at Jackson, because I think his quickness, his movement, leg kicks, and then just the kill instinct are going to just overshadow anything that Jackson does. So I got the first round knockout via leg kick to the face.
wow. I think this fight was supposed to happen a year ago. I think this is a rescheduled bout. But yeah, this was such a weird matchup. I was so confused when I saw this.
Yeah, and that's why it's such leaning towards heavy Dean Barry, even though he's the newcomer, because of
Yeah.
his what he does and what he can do in the future. I think he's one of those prodigy fighters that they're hoping hits instead of misses.
Yeah, they want him to be the next Ian Gary.
Yeah, exactly. But let's move on to the next fight on the prelims. We got a men's flyweight matchup. We were talking about this before. Cameron Ellis is moving down to flyweight. But in this matchup, you got Aruklian versus Cameron Ellis in this matchup. Sorry for butchering the name. Got the Mongolian murderer, who is 20-11, 3-2 in his last 5 fights. And then you got Cameron Cheetah Ellis, who is 10-5, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. You got the percentages say that Roquelin is 72% the favorite to win, whereas only 28% are going with Cameron Ells. What are your thoughts on this fight, Jim? And who do you have winning?
Yeah, this is another interesting fight. Really interesting matchup. Roquelin Lang, Mongolian murderer, I'm going to call him, nickname of the night right there. And he can either throw one punch or 116,
Yes.
as he's done in his last 2 fights, right? Um, that's what we were talking about early on in the show. Whereas Els is dropping down in weight, but has a ton of power, and there's a lot of unknowns there. How the weight cut affect him? Will he be faster? Will he be the heavy? Like what will he bulk up to after he has his first meal and he rehydrates? Can Roquelin kind of deal with that extra weight? There's a lot of what ifs surrounding Cameron Else. I think this is a very underrated matchup in my opinion, but I think I'm gonna go. It's going to be closer than people think. I know a lot of people are heavy on the Mongolian murderer, but I actually have Cameron Else winning this fight by decision.
I'm going to go just call him Lang and Elves in this match. I'm just going to make it pretty easy.
Okay.
And you got two different style fighters, just like you said. Elves has movement and he has that power. But then you got Lang, who his nickname is there for a reason because he's a brawler. They brought him in. He's known for just going in there, swinging for the fences. He's one of the first guys to get brought into the performance center in Shanghai, and he's been one of the guys that they've been just raving about how he's gone and progressed in his career. He's become a more technical brawler, I guess you can say. But one of the things that was interesting in his fights is he's a very fast starter. He's started to grapple a lot more now, even though not lost to Jeff Molina, he's a guy that was on the show a month or two ago. He fought him in one of Molina's first fights in the UFC, and one of the first things he did was he pushed Molina up against the cage, took him down, but then he liked to use the cage to just press him up against it and start throwing shots. But then he started to slow down a little bit. That's one of the things that's hurt him. But I like the volume part of his side with the brawling. And I feel like he could sneak out a split decision victory over Elves because Elves is going to last a little bit longer in the cardio, but he's not going to put in the volume I feel like that Lang's going to put in. So that's why I'm leaning with Roquelin Lang by split decision over Cameron Elves in this matchup. I think it's going to be a close match.
Yeah.
But I think that grappling part of Lang's side is going to play a huge factor in the decision here.
Yeah, so we're right here. We're right on the same page. It's different, different book, if you will, right? With the decision.
Exactly. But let's move on to the next fight on the card. We got the last fight on the prelims. It's a welterweight matchup between Luis Casque versus Preston Parsons in one of the interesting matchups of the night. First, you got Casque, aka the Monster. He's coming in at 7-1, 4-1 in his last 5 fights, and then you got Preston Pressure Parsons, who's coming in at 9-3, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. If you look at the percentages down below, 77% are backing Casque, whereas only 23 are backing Parsons. What are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you have winning?
Yeah, this was another tough, really tough one to pick for me.
Yeah.
Kosuke has a ton of power, stops all of his opponents in the first round, but was outworked and absorbed a ton of damage against Pavlovich. His last fight out, went to the 3rd round, ended in a TKO. His greatest strength is his power, but he does have decent BJJ. Parsons, on the other hand, has a really good ground game, but is susceptible to being knocked out. He's had some really good fights with Ignacio Bahamundes, Mike Perry. He's fought names that you know.
He came in on short notice against Daniel Rodriguez in his debut.
Yep. Yeah, and he's looked, he's a gamer. He's looked pretty good in some of his fights. I have Kosuke, I'm sorry, winning this by late first round knockout. But if this goes into the later rounds, then the fight is going to be tougher for him, where that pressure from Preston Parsons is really going to
Yeah.
add up, and if it goes to decision, Parsons wins.
Yeah, this is going to be predicated on whether Preston Parsons can get the wrestling going in this matchup. He has a highly talented wrestling background. That's what his fight plan is predicated behind, is going for the takedowns, pressuring his opponent, get the fight to the ground, and look for submissions. A lot of his wins are by submission. And then he also likes to press him up against the cage and throw strikes on him. But then you got, like you said, Kosuke, who's a knockout artist. He has heavy hands, he has quick speed. He comes after you. But then, just like you said in the last fight, he started to get a little bit tired because of the way he fights. A lot of his fights are first round knockouts. So once he gets to the second and third round, that's when things start going downhill for him. And he has to kind of get up early in the first and then squeak the second and then just last the third if he doesn't get that knockout. Because against a guy like Parsons, if he can weather the storm in the first round, he can ride the grapple in the second half of the fight and sneak out with the decision. But I think Luis Kosuke is going to get the first round knockout here. I'm going to agree with you on this one. I think the hands are just going to be too much. Parsons has been susceptible to being knocked out in the last few fights because he can't match the other opponent's striking. That's just been one area of Parsons' game that needs to be improved, so that he's not just a one-dimensional wrestler that looks to take you down and submit you. So I'm going to go with Kosuke by first round knockout in this one.
Yeah, I think that last fight against Pavlovich really took Lewis into deep waters. That was the
Yeah.
first fight in his professional career that he went past the first round.
Yeah.
So he's young in his career, 8 fights in, but once you get there, you can get there, and
Yeah.
that there's things that you can tweak for the next fight. So if it goes longer, maybe he's adjusted, but we'll see.
Yep. But let's transition over to the main card. The
Yeah.
first bout that we have is a featherweight matchup between Charles Jourdain versus Lando Vannata. In this one, Charles Jourdain is 12-4-1. He is 2-1-2 in his last 5 fights. And then you got groovy Lando Vannata, who's 12-5-2. He is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. And then if you look down to percentages, 70% is lean towards Jourdain, whereas only 30% are lean towards groovy Vannata. What are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you have winning?
I really like this fight a lot, and I think it's going to be a very interesting fight. Both of these guys can throw a high amount of volume, but absorb just about the same amount of
Yeah.
volume that's put out. They're both hittable, and they're both durable. I know Venata's got a chin. He's gone to war with Bobby Green on multiple occasions.
Yeah.
Charles Jourdain's got a chin as well. The difference between the two fighters is Venata's wrestling, which he focused on. Which, if he focuses on, I'm sorry, could negate Jourdain's high output. But if he stays standing, I think Jourdain is going to get the win. His jabs are crisper. He has good head work and good footwork. But if, like I said, this was a really tough one for me. But I think Lando is going to look to get the fight to the ground and look at last Jourdain's fight with Julian Rosa and use that as his blueprint. Rosa took him down, worked him on the ground, got the win. I have Lando Vannata by second round submission.
I think this is going to go the distance here, and I got Charles Jourdain by unanimous decision. The one weakness for Charles Jourdain has been the fighters that are taller than him with the bigger reach, and he's always had trouble with that. Just like you said, he had trouble with that Juicy J in that matchup. But these two guys are the same height; they got similar reach. Vannata is a little bit a bigger reach by 2, but they're the same height, same weight. So it's going to be an easier fight for Jourdain on the feet. I think the one thing that you said is the wrestling, the grappling, but I think Jourdain can deal with that by the leg kicks and the movement, because I feel like he moves better than Vannata. I feel like he does a little bit better in the volume game. He has the bigger shots. He has that knockout power. I don't think Venata is like that in the striking game. I think he's ever improving with it.
Oh, he was. Remember that wheel kick back in the day?
Yeah, back in the day.
And then
But
think about it for a second. I'm
yeah,
sorry to cut you off.
no, you're good.
I'm a big Venata fan. Remember who he faced in his debut on short notice and really did well? Tony Ferguson. This
Yeah,
dude's been fighting around when Tony Ferguson was the
yeah.
boogeyman. And he really did very well. So like he's been to wars, and I don't think Charles Jourdain's really been to a war yet.
Well, he's fought a lot. Like if you look at the guy, he won by submission against Mariano. He lost to Mark Diakese by decision. He beat ENC Medeiros by decision. He lost to Bobby Green by decision, and then beat Mike Grundy, which was a month ago.
Yep.
Then he got Jourdain, who lost to Andre Fili by split. He drew with Colabao, which is questionable, but then he beat Marcelo Rojo by KO. Of course, lost to Juicy J, but then he fought 3 months ago and beat Andre Ewell, where he looked a lot better.
Yeah, he
And
really
he
did.
was supposed to fight Ila Taporia, but that fight got scrapped a couple of days before the
Yeah.
fight was supposed to take place.
Who'd you have winning that fight?
I had Taporia
Yeah, me
just
too.
because of his body of work.
Yeah.
But I think Charles Jourdain will win this just by volume.
Okay.
Like even though I know you said like he's Vernata has fought a lot of good talent, that 10 months off I think is going to kill him here because in that time, Jourdain has fought twice and it was supposed to fight a third time and couldn't get that one fight going because of the other fighter, of course. But I think he's been the more active guy. And then being active is a big thing to me when it has to do with a fight this close. And
Yeah.
I feel like the rest won't be too much early on. I think Jourdain could get started early where you might see Lando a little bit rusty. We're at the start since it's been almost a year since he's fought. And then but I do like the defense of Lando being able to clinch with Jourdain, limit those crazy leg kicks and the power shots of
Yeah.
Jourdain getting inside. So that's why I have it going the distance. I think Jourdain's going to get it 2-1. I think Jourdain gets the first, Lando comes in, gets the second, but then Jourdain out volumes in the third and sneaks out the victory here.
Yeah, I mean, could definitely possibly happen.
Yeah. But let's move on to the next fight on the main card. We got a women's flyweight matchup between Maycee Barber versus Montana De La Rosa. Maycee, the future Barber, comes in at 9-2, 3-2 in her last 5 fights, whereas Montana De La Rosa is 12-6-1. She is 2-1-2 in her last 5 fights. And then the percentages say that 74 are going with Barber, while only 26 are going with Montana De La Rosa. What are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you think is going to win?
Yeah, this is one of those fights that could go either way depending on which fighter really shows up.
Yeah.
Barber has been a really low volume striker as of late since coming
Yeah.
back from her injury, as has De La Rosa. De La Rosa has knockout power, which we've seen in her last fight, and she shoots for more takedowns than Barber. But will she decide to stand up or shoot for takedowns? I believe she hasn't shot for a takedown in a very long time. I want to say a year. No, I'm thinking of someone else. I'm sorry. But Barbara's been working with Team Alpha Male lately, so
Yes.
she's been drilling wrestling. So her takedown defense is going to be better than what it was a few fights ago. I know she took down Miranda Maverick, who is known for her wrestling as
Yeah, she
well.
took her down. She had issues with Alexa Grasso. That's who she had
Yeah,
issues with, and that's why you saw her kind of. We make fun of the fact that in that fight she was shadow boxing for like 2 rounds before she kept going. She was just throwing from
yeah,
a far distance because she was afraid of the clinch of Grasso.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
Grasso is a similar style as Montana De La Rosa. So
Yeah, and
it makes you think what she's going to do when she comes into this fight.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this fight is going to go to the judges, and I have this being a split decision. So I'm going to go Maycee Barber by split because she tends to win split decisions.
Yeah.
Um, the thing about Maycee Barber is like she kind of reminds me of like Aspen Ladd and Holly Holm in the sense of she sets up her strikes with like a noise. Like the noise comes and then the strike is
Yes.
thrown. So like her opponent is able to kind of telegraph that when that or like know when that's coming and then counter it. So this is gonna be a pretty important fight for Maycee Barber in her career, but I think she wins this by a split decision.
If you look at the last two fights for Montana De Rosa against Myra Bueno Silva and, of course, Ariane Lipsky,
Yep.
and she has that grappling background. She likes to take you down. A lot of her wins are by submission. But then in the last fight, she was able to ground and pound, get a lot of volume on Lipsky, and you started to see De La Rosa's striking look a lot better, like it's more evolved.
Yeah.
And then she was having success with early taking down Bruno Silva, which led to Bruno Silva getting the point deduction. But then she was having trouble with the striking of Bruno Silva. But the thing with Bruno Silva is she likes to get close up with the striking, and then she does the Muay Thai clinch. And she did it perfectly great against De La Rosa, where she Muay Thai clinched her through a lot of the elbows and knee shots and was able to rack up the volume with De La Rosa, and that's why the fight went to a draw due to the fact of the point deduction. Uh, but then you got Maycee Barber, who likes to throw. She's a striker, and she likes to fight from kickboxing range. But we've seen her be a fighter where in the first two rounds she's very low volume. She's slow to get going. She seems to be more defensive, where she throws from range. She tries to keep her opponent at bay. But then in the third round, something clicks, and then she becomes more vicious. She gets up close, throws elbows, throw knees, throw the strikes, and she does whatever she can to get the fight finished. And I don't think that's a good recipe. She got the split decision, like you said, versus Maverick, and she still is one of those fighters that even though she looked like a champ, and then she got hurt, and that cost her the win uh, in that fight where she
Yep.
got hurt, and then she was out a year, and ever since then she looked like a shell of that former self. She still has like a win or two since then, but I think it's going to be hard for her to deal with the grappling of De La Rosa. I think De La Rosa's job coming in will be get up close, throw within the clinch, pull her down, and ground and pound her or look for those entries into submissions because I think Barber's going to be susceptible to it. So I think this could be a second or third round submission via a rear naked choke or armbar. It just depends on what part of Barber she attacks. And if when she takes her down, Barber tries to get up and then she attacks the back and whatnot. But I got her. I'm going to go third round submission.
All right. Yeah, I mean, it just depends on who shows up, right?
Yeah.
There's two different versions of both these fighters, and I'm curious to see where this one goes.
Yep. But let's move on to the featured bout on the card. We got a men's lightweight matchup between Clay Guida, the Endless Wonder, versus
Yeah.
Claudio Puelles. In this matchup, Clay Guida comes in 37-21. Of course, his nickname is the Carpenter. He is 2-3 in his last five fights. Then you got Claudio El Nino Puelles, who is 11-2. He's 4-1 in his last five fights. He's on a 4-fight winning streak. The percentages think it's going to be 71% on Puelles' side to only 29% on Guida's side. What are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you have winning?
I like it. I like this fight. I love Clay Guida, number one.
Yeah.
Guida is he's a great wrestler. He's a cardio machine. And
Yes.
he'll throw hands. He'll go to war with you if you want to. Puelles has great grappling, takes advantage of his opponent's mistakes. And I think that that is going to be something to look at. Guida goes for a lot of takedowns. He's been in grappling tournaments as of late, and he's been winning them. He's been doing very well. But he does give up his neck, which I believe
Yes.
is going to be something that Puelles is going to capitalize on. Both are low volume fighters on their feet. Sometimes they'll throw like 29, sometimes they'll land 60, but there's not a lot of people who want to can go to war with Clay Guida in his fights because he
Yeah.
gets the fights to the ground. Um, they search for that groundwork and that ground control. I have former guest of the show, Claudio Puelles, winning by second round rear naked choke because Clay Guida gives up his neck.
I wanted to go with that, but then Clay Guida is the hardest guy in the UFC to sub. Like he just can defend it at all wills. In that fight against Mark Madsen, the Mark Madsen had him in several submissions, and he was able to just withstand that, go out and grind out. And he's also tough to get down, but Claudio Pros has a high Western background. People just don't know it because he's from Poland, but that's the thing that he did over there because they didn't have MMA, so he resorted to wrestling, and then he used that to transition to MMA. So a lot of his game is predicated on getting the takedown and doing a lot of ground and pound and submission entries. But his hands have been ever improving. He showed that against Jordan Levitt. He showed that in that comeback victory over Philipe Silva. Of course, he beat Mariano. And then his last fight, he, just like you said, he knee barred Chris Grutzmacher, where he was just bullying Grutzmacher in that fight. And that's what has been the rise in that 4-fight win streak for him into that contender status that he's in right now. I got him winning this by a unanimous decision here. Just sort of sheer fact that Guida is one of the toughest guys. I think he can take a punch. As you see in that last fight where he beat Leonardo Santos, he took a beating and then he almost got knocked out. And then he just got resurrected from the ashes and was able to get the victory there. Santos basically punched himself out and tired himself out. And then that's when Guida took over and got the victory there. Perales has good cardio. He knows how to manage himself. He can transition from grappling to striking and then striking to grappling very well. I think he racks up the volume over Guida. He'll get like 1 or 2 takedowns where he does a little bit of ground and pound. And he's going to expect Guida to be moving the whole fight. So that's why I think it's going to go to the judges, and Perales will win this fight by decision.
Okay. Claudio is definitely putting Peru on the map,
Yes.
if not single-handedly. I don't really know any other Peruvian fighters in MMA, but I'm sure the comments, well, in the UFC, but I'm sure the comments will correct me.
Yep. So we're both on Perales in this matchup.
Yep.
Moving on to the co-main event of the evening, we got a men's heavyweight matchup between Tanner Boser going up against Alexander Romanov. We got Tanner the Bulldozer Boser, who is 28-1. He's 3-2 in his last 5 fights, whereas Alexander King Kong Romanov, one of the prospects in this heavyweight division, he is 15-0, 5-0 in his last 5-0 in his last 5 fights. The percentages are leaning towards Romanov, 89%, while only 11 are leaning towards Boser. Jim, what are your thoughts on this fight? And then who do you got winning this co-main event?
So this is another interesting matchup. If Boser is the aggressor, he'll have more success getting the knockout. But if the fight goes to the judges, he does not do enough to win. At times, he searches for that one shot, plays counter striker to his opponent. Romanov brings in grappling-based offense to this fight, which is going to be his path to victory, in my opinion. I don't think Boser gets the knockout. I do believe that he gets taken down and worked on the ground for a little bit. And I have Alexander Romanov notching his 16th win in a row, and he gets it by decision. And I think we're going to see a pretty big matchup for Romanov this next fight after Boser.
I just want to highlight one thing here, and it's the weight. You got 265 to 240, and a lot of people have talked about how Boser, when he trims weight, looks more like he could be a light heavyweight because of how he fights. And then you got the fact of the styles in this matchup. You got Boser, who is a nice mover. He has good cardio right now, good movement speed, and predicated on his hand speed, I should say. Like he can throw a lot of punches in a short amount of time. But then you got Romanov, who is a grappler, a world-class grappler. He likes to get the fight to the ground. He's a submission specialist, and he's going to look to get Boser down and look for the submission, or just look at control over this big swinger here. Because if the fight stays standing, Boser's going to be able to knock him out. But I think that Romanov's going to continue that win streak, and he's going to get it by first round sub via a rear naked choke. I think he just finds a way to get his opponents down. You look at the last couple of fights, he did it to Bandera, where he just pulled him down and smothered him, wore him out, and then finally got the submission. And I got him in the same range as Boser. I think Boser is better, and then he has the knockout power. But I feel like he'll struggle against a grappler of Romanov's style. So I got first round sub by Alexander King Kong Romanov.
First round sub. Yeah, that's I was leaning that way too. Romanov is a monster. Man, he is this is a hell of a fight, this co-main event. I know a lot of people aren't high on this one, but this is a great fight.
Yeah, and I think the thing that's going to be messing with Romanov, where he needs to work on getting into the top 15, is the fact that he's predicated on the grappling. He needs to work on that striking, so that once he gets into that top 15, he can make movements and be more of a threat against these big timers in the heavyweight division.
Yeah, I could see him going up against Dawkins next if he gets this fight, if he wins this one. I think that's the matchup to make.
But let's move on to the main event of the evening. We got a women's women's fight between Amanda Lemos versus Jessica Andrade. Is taking place in the strawweight division. Sorry about that. I almost said flyweight division, but it's being used at strawweight here. It got Amanda Lemos, who comes in at 11-1-1, 5-0 in her last 5 fights. It's Amanda Dina and then you got Jessica Andrade beat Estaca, who comes in at 22-9, 2-3 in her last 5 fights. Of course, she's making the move down. The percentages is saying 70% are leaning towards Andrade, whereas only 23 are leaning towards Lemos. What are your thoughts on this main event, and then who do you have winning?
Yeah, I like this matchup, but I'm confused on why Jessica Andrade is moving down after having success at 125. She looked good against Calvillo. She looked good against Chookagian. Struggled against Valentina. I mean, everybody does. This seems like a move where Jessica feels more confident that she can beat Rose or Weili for the title. We've seen her beat Rose, struggled against Weili in China, but I feel like this is one of those more calculated moves for Jessica. But she has to get through the 11-1-1 Amanda Lemos, who is the taller fighter, riding a 5-fight win streak. Both of these power strikers are both are power strikers. But what separates the two is the takedowns, in my opinion. Jessica Andrade is a very strong and likes to get the fight to the ground, while Lemos, this is the one I was referring to earlier with Montana De La Rosa, hasn't landed a takedown in 2 years. She has not even attempted a takedown in 2 years, and has seemed much more confident in her stand-up despite having a pretty decent ground game. I think Andrade's takedowns are going to be the difference maker. And with that being said, I have Jessica Andrade winning by decision.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That's been the one thing that's gotten on my mind in this matchup, because just like you said, Jessica Andrade can do the takedowns. I feel like every time I see her, she's either doing a judo throw or she's just pulling her opponent down because of her experience. She can knock you out. She has good BJJ. This is going to be a barnstormer. I feel like she could use that to get an advantage on Lemos, or you could just see these two just stand up and trade for all 3 rounds, because Lemos is a knockout artist. You saw
Yep.
that in all of our fights. She either wins by knockout or in the last fight where she pulled out of a questionable decision victory, but she had almost did what nobody could do and knock out Angela Hill. Angela Hill is
Yep.
one of those. She has one of the best chins, but she had her rocked, and then the ref almost caught it, but he kept it going, and Angela Hill survived and lost a split decision to Lemos. And I think it's going to come down to the later rounds in this fight where I think Lemos could get started early, but it's like who's going to get the bigger shots? Can Lemos stuff takedowns? And then when it comes to like the third round, who's going to be up and who's going to be willing to take that fight? And then this isn't 3 rounds too. This is 5 rounds. And I think that favors Jessica Andrade.
Yeah.
Early when this was announced, I was going to lean towards Lemos because I thought maybe Lemos could knock her out early. But I feel like this fight's going to go longer than we think it's going to. And I think that heavily favors Jessica Andrade. And I'm going to go with Jessica Andrade by 4th round submission here. I feel like it's going to be a weird finish there. I don't think it goes 5 rounds. I think Lemos gets tired after 3 unless we see a better conditioned version of her where she doesn't go out guns blazing right away. And Andrade is going to take advantage of her being tired in the 4th round, and she's going to take her down and then submit her. So I got Jessica Andrade win this with her move down to the strawweight division with that 4th round submission.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm decision. You're submission. This is going to be a great fight, man. I'm curious to see if this is a fight that Andrade took just to take a fight because there was no matchups at 125, or this is just a calculated move.
I think it's calculated because she's moving down to a straw weight, and then one of the women that are making her move up is Amanda Lemos, and you got a lot of people already booked, so they got similar striking backgrounds, and it makes for a great fight, kind of like the Chimaev Burns one, where even though Burns was 2 and Chimaev is 11, they both had that background of striking that just made for one of those great fight of the year candidate fights. I don't think it's going to be fight of the year, but I do think it's going to be one of the best fights on this card here. I think the first couple of rounds are going to be crazy, but when you go longer in the fight, that's when it's going to benefit the veteran here in Jessica Andrade.
Yeah, I think performance of the night is going to come from the winner of this fight.
Exactly. But other than that, that'll wrap things up with tonight's UFC 207 4-card breakdown. Before we get going, I just want to give away a couple of my bets that I'm going to be doing for this card. Once I get rid of this screen right there, one of the ones that I'm going to go with is easily Alexander Romanov inside the distance. I'm going to go with that. I feel like he's going to get the sub. I'm very high on it. But just to cover my tracks, I'm going to go inside the distance just in case he can win by ground and pound. But I'm going to go with Alexander Romanov inside the distance. The next one I'm going to go with is I'm going to go with Dean Barry by KO. Got to do it. We talked him up. And we don't like Mike Jackson. Mike Jackson has a 10% chance that he could win just by controlling the fight in the grapple along the cage or on the ground. But I feel like Dean Barry's right for the big time knockout in his debut. So I'm going to go with Dean Barry KO in this one. I'm also going to go with Mudaerji. I'm going to go with him by decision. This is going to be one of the big time fights. I might even go with just the over 2.5 because I feel like this fight's going to go the distance no matter what because these guys should be able to withstand the others. And I feel like this could be a fight where it could be fight of the night or it could go kind of boring because both guys are going to be scared of each other's striking because they both can pack a punch here. And then the last one, this is the extra one. I like to throw in a fourth one. I'm going to go with Marcin Prachnio, just the money line here. With Philipe Lins making the move down and him being very weak against the leg kicks where he doesn't like to check them. I think the weight cut's going to do a lot to him because he has cut over 30 pounds, and that's a lot. So I think he's going to come in hydrated right away with this. And then Prachnio being a very big leg kicker, I think he could get the finish here. But just because I think it might go to the decision, I'm going to just go with the money line with that one.
All right.
So I'm going to go with those four right there. But other than that, we'll wrap things up with tonight's show. As you see down below, we got the ticker right back on. We want to give a thanks to our sponsor, which is High Tide Herbal. If you don't know who they are, check out the video right now.
Offering high-quality, sustainable products with all-natural, lab-tested ingredients, it's High Tide Herbal's mission to help others live the longest, healthiest, and most productive lives possible. Their hemp-derived CBD products have a wide variety of uses, from helping sore muscles to skin hydration and minimizing skin irritation. They generate results based on your specific needs. Elevate your lifestyle with the new wave of wellness. Visit hightideherbal.com to learn more.
Once again, that's High Tide Herbal. All you got to do is go to www.hightideherbal.com. You put in the promo code that you see down below, CageMyIQ10, at checkout to save 10% off your next purchase with High Tide Herbal. Once again, use promo code CageMyIQ10 to save 10% off your next purchase. We will be back next week to preview UFC Fight Night 208, which is headlined by Marlon Vera going up against Rob Font. I am looking forward to that fight card. It is going to be the last fight night before we have UFC 274, which is headlined by Justin Gaethje versus the Bronx Charles Oliveira for the lightweight championship of UFC. But other than that, we will get going. As always, if you haven't done so already, hit the subscribe button down below. Please hit the like button as well. And also hit us up in the comments section and let everybody know about Cage My IQ, because we're the best place for all your MMA content. But that'll wrap things up. I'm your host, Cage. This is my co-host, Jim. And we will see you guys later. Thanks for tuning in.
See ya.